Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm playing Drawback chess, where each player gets a random drawback, like Lame Duck, where you can't move your king, or True Gentleman, where you can never capture a queen. My goal is to win 5 games. Let's get started with game number 1. Alright, round number 1 we get the black pieces, and our drawback is Rising Water. Every 10 turns, the water level rises 1 rank. You can't move pieces that are underwater, and you can't move to squares that are also underwater. Okay, so 10 moves means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces to get out from under the water in 9 more turns. I guess we'll just prioritize the pieces that are easier to get out. Rooks, I guess, are as good as gone. Let's pin this knight. We have 7 turns left, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. Let's develop the knight, and I guess we can just leave the king and the rook maybe underwater, as long as it's not obvious to our opponent what's happening. Let's trade this off. Let's move queen to d7, and in 4 more turns, we are losing this back rank. So I'm gonna castle long, and then we're just gonna go for like a crazy kingside attack as best we can. Okay, we get rook to e1. Now I can play 1, 2 moves and get the rook out, or I can move, let's see, 1, 2. I mean, there's no way I can save all 3 of these pieces, so I guess it makes more sense to prioritize saving the rook in this situation. Okay, we get a3. Let's save the rook naturally. Let's do it with rook to h7 actually, because I don't want any e4 ideas looking at the rook down that diagonal. 1 turn left before our pieces go underwater on this back rank. And then we should probably just start an attack and see if we can finish this off before the next 10 moves run dry. Okay, we get b4, clearly looking for a counter attack. Let's play g5, and these pieces are now officially underwater. Can't move them, can't move any other pieces back to that rank. We get bishop to d2. Let's play g4. We have 9 turns left before this next rank gets consumed, and I guess that's not really a concern. I'd just end up saving this rook and saving the queen somehow, and that only takes 2 turns. And these 2 will probably end up moved just from the attack that's ongoing. Let's go ahead and take on h3. There's ideas now of check. I can always shuffle the rook somewhere else on this file. Ooh, g3. Opponent is definitely not interested in opening up the king side, which is the right approach. Let's play h4 and try to force the issue. Keeping an eye on the fact that there are 7 turns remaining before the second rank goes submerged. King to h2. Let's play check. Pawn takes back. And now let's centralize this knight on e4. There's only 5 turns left, so I should probably play it safer and play like queen d6 and then maybe like, I don't know, rook to h6 or something sooner rather than later, so I don't end up accidentally submerging my, my whole attack before it even gets started. Okay, rook to g1 defends this pawn. I'm still going to play queen to d6 just to get it off the 7th rank, get it looking at this g3 pawn. Bishop to d3. I guess if this whole back rank is getting submerged anyways, I might as well play f5 now and get this pawn off that 7th rank as well. Okay, takes. I'll go ahead and take back. Keeps the center nice and closed, which is ideal conditions to continue an attack. Unfortunately, I'm continuing this attack with 1, 2, 3 total pieces, so it's not looking too great. I'm genuinely curious what my opponent's drawback is, because they're playing sort of as a intermediate player might try to defend this position. So understanding that the king can sit behind an enemy pawn and it's not really an issue, but also not necessarily, bringing all of their forces immediately to the king side. Now, whether or not that's a result of them still having hope for a queenside attack, I don't know. But I'm genuinely curious what their drawback could possibly be, because there's like a check here, for example, that's kind of natural. And I wouldn't even be able to move the king. I'd have to play e6. Okay, rook to f1 offers a rook trade. There's 1 turn left before this rook gets submerged, so I really don't have a choice but to take. So I'll take here. Queen takes back, and that's 2 layers now completely submerged. Not really sure how I come back from this, but we'll do our best for it. I don't even know. I guess let's play tricky. Let's do this. Maybe we can take on, whoops, bad arrow, take on d4, take the bishop on d2. I mean, it's not very concrete. I basically am down 2 pieces, but there's no way my opponent knows that. So if I can run down their time before they realize what's going on, then maybe there's a chance. Okay, knight comes over, maybe looking for f4. Let's play queen to h5. If knight to f4, then I just move back, and I'm basically forcing my opponent to decide how they're going to follow through on this attack, because they aren't particularly well developed if you look at their pieces. Rook is still in the corner, bishop is behind the wall of pawns. I mean, the knight's looking at a pretty nice outpost here. Nice, that's the natural move. And my opponent doesn't know that this is not defended. So again, we're just kind of playing with our opponent's expectations. c3, oh, I can't move a6, what am I doing? Let's make a waiting move, queen g5. Maybe we can drop this pawn, look for a little check. Whoops, bad arrow again. because our opponent is definitely eating away at their own time quite generously. We also only have 6 turns before these last 2 pieces get submerged. And this knight really has nowhere to go. That's basically an impossibility. Let's move here. Okay, queen g5, just kind of eating away at my opponent's time. Eventually, knight to e5 will be necessary. I mean, there's only 4 turns left. We might as well play it now. Okay, rook to h2 is very interesting. Let's play this, hit the rook and the bishop. I quite like what I'm seeing so far. Nice, we'll take the bishop, hit the queen. Rook to h5, what is happening? Queen g4, I'm going to ignore that and keep this attack. We've lost the 6th rank now as well. 4 seconds left for our opponent. Queen to e2, no thanks. I'm not interested in a trade. I'm going to continue this attack that seems to be going suspiciously well. Let's take on g3 as well. There's the threat of mate. 1 second for our opponent. Check. There's no way to escape that. And we do take the king to win game number 1. That was absolutely insane. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. All right, you won. You took your opponent's king. Your opponent's drawback was punching down. Your pieces can't capture pieces worth more than them. And anything captures a king. Wow, that's insane. Actually, that explains why our opponent maybe defended so well. Is because we could have literally just sacked the queen with like a Greek gift, and our opponent wouldn't have had an escape. So that's kind of crazy. But we did have a significantly harder drawback than our opponent because we lost many pieces from the get-go. And then after move 20, we had even more pieces that were just gone off the board. But we did manage to pull through. Let's go to move on to game number 2. All right, game number 2, we get the black pieces again, and our drawback is edgelord. Must have at least as many pieces on the rim as your opponent. Okay, this basically calls for like a random knight to a6 and then play the opening as normal, I think. All right, we get pawn to d4. Let's play d5. I mean, as long as we keep it symmetrical, there's no way we'll have less pieces on the rim. Pawn to e3. And actually, maybe I should be careful because like if my opponent randomly plays some crazy move, then maybe it could cost me the game. So let's play here. My opponent can take. I'll take back. I'll have doubled pawns, but they'll be on the rim, so it will be worth it. Knight to f6. Rest of this, I think I can just play normal. Oh, I've forgotten that this is part of the rim. Oh, interesting. Okay, we'll take with the knight in that case. Does my opponent developing a piece here immediately lose me the game, or do I have to just move back somehow? Because I've just realized this was completely redundant. This did nothing. This just went from rim to rim. And if you want to understand your opening better than I understand my drawbacks, I highly recommend checking out the sponsor of this video, chessreps.com, which offers super easy step-by-step opening practice. This is me learning the Jobava London, and this is me crushing an opponent with the same opening, so yeah, it works. For just $3 a month, you get access to 21 openings with hundreds of lines, and they drop a brand new opening every week. Plus, you can practice in fun ways like time trial mode, where you race to see how quickly you can remember your openings, and drill mode to focus on drilling your opening preparation. If you want to support the channel and become an opening menace, check out chessreps.com. Now, back to the video. Okay, our opponent is running down their time. I think they are due for a welfare check because they've been gone for 2 minutes, and there's no sign of them intending to move. All right, in what seems to be an active rage quit, our opponent times out the game for us to win game number 2. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. All right, in what is probably a personal record for the fastest drawback game that I've ever won, in 4 moves, we apparently defeated our opponent with a significantly harder drawback, but our opponent's drawback was sibling rivalry. You cannot move a piece to a square adjacent to an opponent's piece of the same type. Okay, that didn't even come into play, so our opponent just disappeared. Let's go to move on to round number 3. All right, round number 3, we finally get the white pieces. Let's play d4, and our drawback is cowardly. When your opponent captures, you must move backwards or lose. Wow, that is so perfectly inverse to my playstyle, I can't even believe it. Also, our opponent's name is you share your drawback, I share mine. Unfortunately, I don't really have any interest in that. Let's go ahead and just take on e5. I mean, I guess I don't want to capture, since surely our opponent is going to try to capture on, what? Queen to h4. There's no way. Okay, so the issue here is if my opponent takes, there's literally no piece that can move backwards, so that, I guess, instantly forfeits the game, or maybe it'll allow me to play something else, but I lose the king anyways. So I'm not really sure what to do here. g3, I guess? I mean, my opponent can just take because I have to move backwards anyways. So this whole drawback is a huge bluff. Okay, we get queen to e4. Let's play knight to f3. h3, defending the pawn. Again, not actually defending the pawn, because if my opponent takes, I have to move backwards. But in our opponent's mind, it should be concrete. It should at least seem concrete. We get queen to b4. Let's just play knight c3. Genuinely curious what my opponent's drawback is that would cause them to play queen to h4, queen to e4, queen to b4. Or maybe they just know like one opening and don't know how to play it if people play it differently than what they expected. Okay, bishop to c5, again, threatening this is just quite uncomfortable. So I'm just going to play e3, not because it might actually happen. Well, I mean, I wouldn't put it beyond an opponent that plays this for their first 3 moves to sack a bishop on f2. I just wouldn't put it beyond them. So I'm going to play e3 just to protect myself against that possibility. And I'm probably looking for like bishop d3, so there's always a backwards turn. Yeah, see what I mean? Bishop to d4, I have no idea what's going on here. I'm just going to take it. Again, my opponent could just take. I would have no choice but to just move backwards. Yeah, wow, queen to d4, and I have to move back. There's only a couple of pieces that can do that. And I guess knight to d2 makes the most sense, because if my opponent takes the queen on d1, then it's pretty much game over. Let's see if our opponent is looking for queen takes f2, which would pretty much immediately end the game. I mean, I'd play like knight to e2 and then lose the king. Queen to e4, just allows me to take, unfortunately. So it seems to be that's the end of that attack. And as long as I can proactively be the one capturing, like for example here, I'm the one taking the piece, then obviously my drawback doesn't come into play and I don't have to play backwards. Obviously on the recapture I will, but it's not as bad. Okay, pawn takes back. Hold on a second. Oh, pawn takes back means I have to move backwards. Okay. Sure, why not? Let's play knight to b1, but I want to play queen to h5 and I want to get an attack going on this very, very weakened king. Pawn to f5, check. I mean, king to any of these dark squares, there's bishop check as well. Just keeps bringing the king further out. Ooh, king to f7, we're just gonna take and win game number 3. Okay, that was pretty good. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. Genuinely curious how we explain our opponent's moves. You won, you took your opponent's king. Your opponent's drawback was forward march. Can't move backwards. Ooh. Okay, so unfortunately, our opponent took the kamikaze way out. They probably could have played a very passive opening and then just slowly worked their way further into the position, and eventually probably figured out that we have struggles when they capture. But instead, they decided to just throw all their pieces at us. So we did take the victory on game number 3, even though we had possibly the hardest relative drawback that we've ever had on this channel. I might have to clip this for the thumbnail. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to game number 4. All right, game number 4, we get the black pieces. Our drawback is remorseful. You can't capture twice in a row. I've never been remorseful about captures. What is this? Okay, let's play knight to f6, just keep it symmetrical. If I can't capture twice in a row, that just means that attacks might be a little bit difficult. Besides that, I mean, maybe if there's a point where there's a lot of pieces attacking at the same time, I won't be able to recapture as I might like to. Again, besides those two sort of edge cases, I think this should be fine. Play c6 to cover b5. Actually, now I'm thinking of even more scenarios, like in an endgame where you might want to capture pawns back to back to back while your opponent does the same. I wouldn't be able to. I'd just capture one, and then that'd be the end of the route for me. Let's play e6. Okay, maybe this was a little bit more involved than I originally imagined. Okay, pawn to h3. Let's play bishop d6. To quote myself, this is a little bit more amusing than I imagined in the first place. So like, for example, right now, my opponent could take, I would take back, and then they could capture anything and I wouldn't be able to take it. Opponent plays bishop to d3. Okay, again, if I play bishop g6 and I keep this sort of tension on the board, it's difficult because if my opponent ever decides to trade off, then I immediately lose a piece. So I'm just going to take on d3 instead. Opponent will almost definitely capture, and I'm just going to take that turn to castle out of the way and reset my can't capture drawback. Okay, bishop to h2, I'm going to take that as well. If I can start working my way towards an endgame, I think I might be okay. Knight takes back. I can't believe I've gone from this isn't so bad to I might be okay. We get short castles. Let's play c5, challenge the center at least a little bit, within reason. Okay, rook to e1. I could just take. I could also play c5. I like c5. Grab some queenside space. Obviously, my opponent's going to look for e5 at some point, or rather e4 at some point, but that will make the game more interesting. Let's play a6, looking for b5. If e4 takes, my opponent takes back. I obviously can't take back again, so like b5 maybe. Or our opponent allows that anyways. Ooh, queen to c1. Okay, this is starting to stink of drawback. Let's play queen to b8 to support this pawn and then look for a5, so we just don't drop it to the knight. Knight to f1. This smells so bad of drawback. Oh, it's the reset drawback, 100%. I can't believe we're finally at the point that we can start predicting our opponent's drawbacks. Wow, it's a shame that I didn't see that coming earlier. Our opponent did it very, very naturally, to be honest. This was a little bit weird. But besides that, knight to f1 makes sense as a reroute of the knight. Probably not optimally, but very, very well done by my opponent. They've probably already completed their drawback, so there's probably nothing else for them to deal with. So no opportunity for me to play like check or anything. But let's continue the attack. Very, very well done. I'm happy that we guessed it, I guess. It's not so much that we guessed it, but rather identified it once it was already on the board. But that was kind of cool. Let's play h6. e4 is now a very natural move. We'll see how good our opponent is now. We get c3. Let's push b3. Maybe they'll just close it. Maybe they'll take. Oh, they do take. Interesting. I'll take back with the pawn. There is now a 2 versus 1 situation here. So eventually this might be a passed pawn that we're looking at. We get e4. Let's take. Oh, we can't capture because we just captured here. Ooh, so we might have to allow them to take some space. Okay, let's push a4. If we can't take back, we might as well create some threats on the side of the board. Wow, that's not even a move. There's a threat. We get pawn to e5, booting the knight. Probably looking for a kingside attack since this is a defending piece. I could play back. I could play knight to e4 and purposely lose the pawn. a3, pawn takes. This pawn doesn't go anywhere. Okay, let's play knight to h7. We're also significantly down on time because we spent so much time gushing about the fact that we identified their drawback and how well our opponent actually pulled that off. We get knight to e3. Let's go for this. Try to find this trade on the board. Otherwise, my opponent's looking for these crazy sacrifices, and I already have enough problems with capturing back as it is. So I'm really not particularly interested in that. Okay, let's play this. Pre-move the recapture. The c4 pawn can serve as a base for the b3 pawn. So now we can push a3 perfectly fine. I'll even pre-move the recapture. Nice. And now this pawn is a little bit, I was going to say this pawn is a little more defended, but I totally forgot that this was dropping. Okay, b2. No choice but to full commit. Okay, rook to e2. Let's play this. Hit the queen. Whoops, terrible arrow. Hit the queen. Hit the pawn behind it. With any luck, maybe we get like this. Takes. Pawn takes back. Check. Trying to force the rook to move. Rook to e1. Rook here. Okay, that's a little too crazy. Well, maybe we get that, but I think that's still better for us just because we can connect the rooks on the back rank. But we'll see if we even get that position. Ooh, rook takes b2 right away. What's the issue? I can't sack because this is check. Wow, that's pretty concrete. And I can't take here. Well, I guess I could. Takes, knight to f8. It's not great. Let's do that. It's not great, but it's probably survivable. We're still looking at these weaknesses. And we're relatively even on time with our opponents. So this might be fine. Okay, rook to d8, looking to double up and win the knight. Is there anything I can actually do about that? I don't think so. Yeah, no, we're gonna have to just forfeit that. So let's take with this rook. Maybe we can grab the second rank. Yep, that knight is all yours. Very well deserved. Opponent takes. Okay, I guess we have to actually defend this. I mean, here the very natural knight to e4, knight d6 is probably completely crushing. But just because we're under a minute, I am gonna give it a try and see if I can bullet out a sort of comeback here. Is it likely? No, it is definitely not likely. Is it possible? I would argue it's possible. I mean, again, I already said it's not likely, so that's off the table. I just said it's possible. Can't even capture that. Okay, let's do this. Yep, and with that, we lose game number 4. All right, let's go ahead and pop up the info board. I'll be honest, I sort of kamikazed at the end because it just wasn't going to happen. Okay, you lost. You took your opponent took your king, rather. Your opponent's drawback was, we already guessed it, Fisher random, on or before move 20. All your remaining non-pawn pieces must be on your home row on a square that it could not have started on. Yep, we actually have gotten that drawback before, so it was kind of cool that we got to identify it, even though we did lose the game. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 5. All right, game number 5, we get the black pieces, and our drawback is farsighted. Your pieces can't capture pieces that are adjacent to them. Okay, well, that's interesting. I don't feel like I end up in too many positions where that's actually an issue. Okay, we get pawn to d4, let's play d5. I guess with pawns is the only time that would really come into play. I feel like pawns are the big one that I tend to overlook. Let's play knight to f6. Knight to f3, sure. We'll probably go for like a London setup against this. Maybe even just bishop f5 here is fine. Our opponent's going with a little Dutch defense sort of thing. Or rather, I guess with the white, it's called the stone wall. Wait, is it? What's it called with the white pieces? I can't remember. Anyways, get bishop d3, we'll drop the bishop back. Totally fine with trading anything for this bishop. The knight, the other bishop, everything here is fine. Oh, actually, wait. Oh, wait, your pieces can't capture pieces that are adjacent to them. So if they take, I can't take back. Whoops, let's go to take on d3. Wasted a tempo there, but worth it for the lesson. Okay, pawn to c3, let's play knight to d7. Knight to d2, let's play bishop to e7. No point in bishop d6 when I can't even take the knight. And we're almost definitely not looking for short castles here because that just kind of walks into our opponent's attack with the rook lift and everything going on the king side. So let's play queen to c7, and we're probably looking for long castles. We just have to be careful if knight takes f7. We get knight to f3 next. Interesting. Let's take, and then play knight to e4. Nice, knight to e4. There's the idea of booting the knight now. It's interesting because this idea of pawn to f4 is actually a pretty common one, which is weird to say as a London player, but it is a pretty common London idea if you always go for that knight to e5 idea, and you ever drop the bishop back, you play f4, maybe bishop to h4, pinning the knight, etc. in the London position, of course. It's a pretty common one, so I'm relatively familiar. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm relatively familiar with what the most uncomfortable counterplays are, and usually the most uncomfortable one is d6 straight away, but the next best thing is f6, just booting the knight, and suddenly the crux of your position has to retreat. We get pawn to b4. Let's play, does g5 here work? Takes. Yeah, let's play g5 right away and then line up the rook. There's no point in waiting too much and over setting it up when we can just go straight for the attack. I mean, our opponent's going to try to go for the same idea, but the truth is our opponent's position is made for a kingside attack. You have this really strong center, pieces on this side of the board. Finally, our opponent decides to actually come back, probably trying to target f7 here. I can't play f6 right now because of knight f7. If I play rook to f8, there's takes. I'm dropping f7, even though I can take back. You know what? Let's play rook to g8 and just lose the pawn. As long as my opponent is engaging on the king side and we're continuing to make progress on the king side of the board in terms of the attack, and my opponent ignores their queen side attack, which they're not, I'm in a good spot. So let's take here on, I can't take because it's adjacent. Ooh, okay. Okay, let's threaten the knight with our fist that we can't take. Knight to f7. Do we just trap the knight here? Let's play this. Oh no, knight to h6 is possible. Right, let's play rook g6, maybe rook g7, hold on. Yeah, I guess rook g7, because I guess I want to stay as far away as possible from other pieces. We get pawn to a5, I still can't take this, so let's push g4. I'll just play this like somebody that doesn't know how to wage war on the king side. We get a6, immediately we're going to block that off. Obviously, I don't want to open up a file for my opponent and get, destroyed on the queen side. So let's try to keep our own attack going. Interesting thing is, it's going to be hard to get a pawn break here if our opponent has no incentive to take. If anything, I might have to go for like g3, h3, which is probably what our opponent will play to close up the king side. And then like knight to f2, the queen will move and then just sack the knight. Okay, we get pawn to c4. If my opponent takes, I can't take back. So this is already an issue. Let's just play g3. I mean, h3 is almost certain here, but okay, we do get h3. Let's play knight to f2. I mean, if we're already getting crushed in the center and then our king is going to get opened up in just a second, pretty much have to full commit this attack. Let's take on h3. Nice, pawn takes back. Let's play e5. I mean, none of these pawns are worth anything to me since capturing them, I can never take back. Nor can I take out of it either. So let's just try to open up some lines for our pieces and hope for the best, I guess. Okay, knight to f5 is an interesting move here. What happens if queen here? Knight takes, queen takes. Traditionally, this would be mate, and maybe we can get our opponent to resign, but concretely, we can't actually take it. Okay, let's move the rook back. My opponent takes, so I just take back with the queen. I mean, I'd love to intimidate my opponent into resigning, but it's a little bit of a bluff that I'm not willing to take right now. I mean, I might eventually. Ooh, c5. b5 closes the position. That is very nice for me. Not to mention, I've yet to catch a whiff of what my opponent's drawback could possibly be. We're kind of forcing this trade. Oh, forcing this trade and I can't take back. Ooh, please don't take it. If my opponent takes it, I have to move the king. Yep. I have to lose the rook. I have to take here, and I have to pray that my opponent resigns. Holy smokes. I just made this so much harder for myself with queen d7. Ooh, our opponent's thinking they might not even take. Ooh, king g2. I still can't take. Let's play rook g7, threaten the knight, which should be trapped. I mean, again, there's this capture, which is a pretty natural one, and I still can't take back. Because the reasoning there is I'm losing the knight, I might as well take a pawn on the way and weaken the structure in front of the king. But our opponent's thinking again, not to mention they're down to 26 seconds. Okay, they do take, we'll just shuffle out of the way. Okay, now we can take back with the queen. 9 seconds, we're 10 now for our opponent. Let's close the center because I have no interest in allowing our opponent to penetrate our position. c6 here is quite critical. Let's play this. We're looking for this kind of maybe silly idea, but we want to target h3, and maybe we can get our opponent to flag here, which would be ideal. Yeah, doubling the rooks here unfortunately doesn't do much. f5 is definitely concrete. Let's play this, looking for queen to h5 still. Queen d2 does defend that. Our opponent definitely understands what's happening in the position. They're just really low on time. Ooh, queen takes on b5. Ugh, not the best thing I've ever seen for my position. Queen c6 here is a threat. Let's play rook to c8. Queen b7 here is almost definitely winning. Queen b6. Let's just start sacrificing stuff. I mean, our opponent's pretty low on time as it is. Oh, wow, and our opponent flagged off rook to h3. That's absolutely insane. So that was game number 5, which now has us at 4 out of 5 points that we want to get. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. Okay, what on earth happened to our opponent? I think they just might have crumbled under time pressure. We won on time. Your opponent's drawback was closed book. You lose if you ever start your turn while there's an open file. Oh, wow. That's so interesting because I thought they were playing very well to defend the king side attack by trying not to open any files, which is what you should do. But on the queen side, which is where they were waging war, they were also closing files, which I guess probably should have been a really obvious symptom of this drawback, which I actually have gotten before. But anyways, with that, we win game number 5, which now has us at 4 wins out of 5 games. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 6. All right, round number 6. We get the black pieces, and our drawback is scouting ahead. As long as you have a pawn, you cannot move non-pawns ahead of your most advanced pawn. Okay, so that means we want to push our pawns as far as we can, at least if we're going for an attack. So let's play a Dutch defense. E6. Oh, funny. Another one of these. Our opponent's name is you reveal, I reveal. Okay, knight to f3. This is just normal Dutch. We'll play this. And the idea of the Dutch is to have a sort of advanced kingside, which gives you a lot of attacking opportunities very quickly once your opponent castles kingside. And the reason I'm interested in that is because like h6, g5 pushes these pawns super far ahead, which is perfectly in line with our drawback, which is that our pawn basically has to scout ahead, and we can't move any pieces past the furthest pawn. So let's play bishop d6 here, continue with this Dutch defense setup. Wow, knight to e5 is quite a thorn in my side. Let's play queen to e7. Can't play knight to d7 there because then it cuts off the defense of the bishop by the queen. There's ideas of sacrificing and then winning the bishop. So queen to e7 is mandatory to maintain defense of the bishop before playing knight to d7. Sweet. Still looking for knight to e4, kind of hoping my opponent will castle soon so I can actually play that. Oh, we get captures. Okay, I'll take with the bishop. Okay, I'll take again, that's fine. I mean, it's a lot of trades, but it's not bad, I guess. Queen to b3. If I castle long, my opponent might castle long as well, and then the attack has to go on the queen side. Let's play rook to b8. We'll defend it this way, and if my opponent castles short, I'll just leave my king in the center and start pushing pawns. And then basically, unless my opponent can somehow break through the center, there's no way for them to target my king. Okay, looking for knight to e5, obviously. Whoops, knight to e5. Okay, fine, I'll concede. We'll castle kingside. It's not really how I wanted to play this, but our opponent is doing a better job of outlasting us. And you know what? We're going to go for it anyways. The queen is on the wrong side of the board, so they're going to have to stop my attack. Okay, bishop to e2. Let's reroute the bishop. Knight to e5. Let us move the king over. Yeah, and we're looking for rook to g8, line the rook up on this file, and that's really interesting, because I actually can never capture this king unless it's at least as far forward as one of my pawns. So either the opponent resigns because they think they're losing, or, more likely if you have a name as experienced as you reveal, I reveal, more likely I just have to be so winning that I end up in an endgame where I can just push a pawn really far forward, or trade off all of these pawns somehow. Okay, knight back to d3, let's push g4. My opponent takes, I do have to take back with the pawn. My opponent doesn't take and plays h4. Let's see, g3, f3 closes everything. So let's play knight to e4. There is the idea of sacrificing here. Actually, no, because I can't move further than my furthest pawn. Ugh, this is pretty bad, actually. I mean, it's not losing at all, but it's not how I wanted this to go. We are threatening knight to d2. I mean, we can't play it, but yeah, our opponent doesn't even see that, so it doesn't matter. We get knight to f4. Let's play queen back. Looking to take on h4. g3 here is probably best. Just closes everything up. Right, let's play queen to f6, looking for e5. Okay, our opponent still doesn't see this, so either they know that we can't move past our furthest pawn, or they just didn't see this threat. Let's see. Let's play h5, and then maybe there's ideas of like knight to g5, playing for a sacrifice, and then looking for h4. Not to mention our opponent has 55 seconds left, so if we can just confuse them into thinking that they're worse, then this could be winning anyways. Right, because they either resign or they end up taking so much time trying to figure out how they're going to get out of this attack that they end up flagging. Ooh, king to g2 is promising. Let's play h4, looking for h3. I'm totally fine with king g7, king f8, should my opponent sacrifice on h3. Let's go ahead and pre-move the recapture as well. Ooh, king to h2. We're getting closer with these pawns. Not as close as I'd like, but closer. Opponent's down to 36 seconds. Queen to b3, we can just wait around. Sure, we'll defend. Queen to a3, probably looking to penetrate the position, which is fair. Do I actually defend this in any way? Let's play b4 so our opponent just takes with the pawn and then just can't come in. Okay, pawn takes back. Let's do this. Okay, opponent is now down 20 seconds. Just not a lot of time. Not to mention, we've planted this pawn on h3, so we're basically free to play on this whole part of the board because our most advanced pawn is on the 3rd rank, which is pretty darn good. Get bishop there, threatening the pawn. Okay, it's not super concrete, but I can see what they're getting at. Let's just defend it. There's no point in overthinking it. They have 10 seconds left anyways. They get 2 seconds back for every move that they make, so they better make some pretty good moves here. Okay, we'll just wait around. Okay, rerouting the knight is interesting. I don't think it creates any threats. Let's play this. Bring the rook over. I mean, our opponent's going to have a lot of pressure on them for the next couple of moves. Rook to c1. I can probably just play some crazy move here and win, but let's play at least sort of concrete. Nice. And our opponent does flag for us to win game number 6. That does give us our 5th victory of this video. Let's go ahead and pop up the info board. Okay, you won because your opponent ran out of time, which is, you know, technically one way to win. Our opponent's drawback was separation of church and state. You can't move your bishops next to a king, and you can't move your king next to a bishop. Okay, yeah, I would definitely argue that our drawback is much more difficult than that because bishops you can just develop and trade off anyways. But anyways, with that, we do win our 5th game. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below what you thought of the drawbacks. Are you guys able to predict all of these drawbacks? Like, I think I predicted correctly 2 or 1. I can't remember. I think I predicted correctly 2 last episode though. So let me know what you guys think. Are these easy to predict for you guys? And what kind of symptoms you guys look out for? Anyways, I will see you guys in the next one.